The drama surrounding a potential clash between Gervonta "Tank" Davis and Jake Paul is unlike anything boxing has seen in years. At first glance, the very idea seems absurd. A pound-for-pound talent known for destroying men his size against a YouTuber-turned-fighter who built his brand on spectacle. Yet the closer you look, the more this bizarre matchup exposes about the sport itself. Fame, money, politics, and the blurred line between legacy and entertainment collide here in a way that forces every fan to ask what boxing has truly become. Even Jake Paul himself admitted shock after seeing Gervonta Davis in training. The way Tank moves, compact and coiled like a predator, gives him a monster-like aura despite standing small next to Paul's frame. Jake reacted with respect but also with confidence. He told fans that Davis is a sound fighter, one of the sharpest in the game. But Jake insisted that his own preparation, his mindset, and his belief in himself are what carry him. For 5 years he has trained, sparred, and endured every insult thrown his way. He reminded critics that not once has he been knocked out in sparring, not once has his chin betrayed him. To him, that meant something. To him, it meant stepping into the ring with Tank wasn't just about skills or size. It was about proving that discipline and self-belief could stand against pure pedigree. Yet the reality loomed heavy. The biggest obstacle between these two men has nothing to do with attitude and everything to do with physics. Gervonta Davis built his name at lightweight and super featherweight, where his explosive combinations ripped through opponents of equal size. His highlight reel proves it. When he flattened Leo Santa Cruz with a vicious left uppercut, the sound of the crowd told the story. Gasps that turned into roars as Santa Cruz lay motionless. When he broke down Rolly Romero with surgical patience before detonating a counter left that folded him instantly, fans were reminded that Tank's power is real and devastating. More recently, when he walked down Ryan Garcia, targeting the body with precision before finishing him with a shot that left Garcia unable to rise, it cemented Davis as one of the sport's true destroyers. These are the moments that built his myth. A smaller man with dynamite in his fists who could stop anyone in his division. But Jake Paul doesn't walk into the ring at 135 pounds. He doesn't even fight at 147. He is a cruiserweight, often carrying more than 190 pounds on fight night. His natural size advantage over Davis is not a few pounds. It is an entire category of mass, strength, and durability. Boxing experts looked at the proposed fight and shook their heads. This wasn't just a tall man fighting a short man. This was a gulf so wide it made the idea of a sanctioned fight nearly impossible. Mass matters. Weight absorbs shots, builds endurance, and shields a fighter from blows that would cripple smaller men. That is why the Georgia Athletic Commission stepped in, why Rick Thompson, the chairman, told USA Today that Paul's promotion company had withdrawn its request for permits and waivers. The 65-pound gap between the fighters wasn't something that could be brushed aside. It was a safety issue, pure and simple. They've been promoting something they should not have been, Thompson said flatly. It was a statement not just about this fight, but about the circus boxing has become. And yet, tickets were still on sale. Fans could still click online and see the event listed at State Farm Arena, as if Georgia hadn't already said no. The contradiction turned into fuel for controversy. For Davis, the rejection was another reminder that politics often shadow his career. Local commissions, venues, and promoters have long tangled with him, sometimes denying fights, sometimes complicating negotiations. For Jake Paul, however, the rejection was an opportunity. He pivoted quickly, shifting the entire spectacle to Miami. Florida has become a playground for celebrity-driven fights, a place where rules bend, money flows, and the audience embraces chaos. Relocating to Miami didn't just save the event, it gave it new life. Suddenly, instead of being a fight blocked by bureaucracy, it became a headline about resilience, spectacle, and star power. Still, beneath the surface, the question remained, was this ever meant to be real? Chris Algieri, a former champion himself, praised Jake Paul's role in modern boxing. He argued that whether Jake wins or loses, he has undeniably marketed the sport to an entirely new audience. Fans who never cared about boxing before suddenly tuned in. Pay-per-views that would have been forgotten sold out. And more importantly, fighters who once never dreamed of mainstream crossover suddenly found themselves drawn into Jake's orbit. Algieri called it a new kind of promotional genius. It didn't matter that Jake wasn't a world champion. What mattered was that he made people care. He brought eyes to boxing, and in an era where attention is the real currency, that alone was valuable. But not everyone agreed. Other analysts and fighters looked at the situation with disdain. They pointed out that Gervonta Davis had earned his place the hard way. Years of dedication, world titles, fights against real champions. Jake Paul, they argued, had fought aging MMA veterans, retired fighters, and names plucked from outside the rankings. His resume was smoke and mirrors, spectacle without substance. For them, the weight gap was not just a reason the fight was dangerous, it was proof the whole thing was a farce. Davis, they said, might embarrass Jake with his speed, his footwork, his clean punching. But against a man nearly 100 pounds heavier, how much damage could those shots really do? Could Davis really hurt Paul the way he hurt Garcia or Romero? Or would his fists bounce off like pebbles thrown at a brick wall? Even Dana White weighed in, dismissing the matchup outright. To him, it was the same as Floyd Mayweather's exhibition with Logan Paul. A spectacle, not a fight. He predicted exactly what others feared. Davis would be too small to knock Jake out, and the event would become a glorified sparring session. A circus act that left purists groaning. These things aren't meant to be competitive fights, White said. They're meant to make money. His words cut to the heart of the issue. If boxing is no longer about competition, what is left? Chael Sonnen, never one to mince words, added his own twist. He said Jake Paul blindsided the public by moving toward Tank instead of Anthony Taylor, who many thought was next. But his criticism wasn't about the weight or even the legitimacy. It was about promotion. Sonnen argued that Tank Davis, for all his greatness in the ring, isn't a salesman. He doesn't sell fights, doesn't hype events, doesn't know how to stir the narrative. Jake Paul, by contrast, has mastered that game. He can make headlines, create storylines, and pull fans in, whether they love him or hate him. Sonnen's point was brutal but simple. Without Jake Paul, this fight would never have reached the level of interest it had. Tank brought the legitimacy, but Jake brought the circus, and together, they created something neither could achieve alone. Still, skepticism remained. Could Tank's legendary power really translate against a man so much larger? Critics pointed to physics. At lightweight, Tank's punches broke men in half, but against a cruiserweight, those same punches might sting without finishing the job. Jake Paul's durability, his ability to eat shots from bigger men, might render Tank's greatest weapon neutral. Without knockout power, what did Tank have left? Skill, yes. Speed, yes. But over 8 rounds over the course of an exhibition, would that be enough? Sean Porter, a former champion, pushed back against the criticism. He defended Davis's decision to even entertain the fight. To Porter, this wasn't about legacy. It was about security. Fighters have short careers. They risk their bodies, their futures, and sometimes their lives for the sport. If an exhibition with Jake Paul brings Tank Davis the kind of payday that sets up his family for life, who is anyone to tell him no? Porter emphasized that exhibitions are built on rules, on agreements designed to limit risk. The purpose isn't to crown a champion. It is to entertain, to generate money, and to give fans a spectacle. He reminded people that exhibitions have always existed in boxing. What has changed is the scale. The money now is astronomical. When numbers like 100 million are whispered, who in their right mind would turn that down? This is the tension that defines modern boxing. On one side, purists cry for legacy, for titles, for the integrity of the sport. On the other, fighters and promoters chase security, money, and headlines. Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul sits at the exact center of that storm. To some, it is an insult to boxing's history. To others, it is the very evolution of the game. But beneath all the debate, the truth remains stubborn. The weight gap is real. The danger is real. And the spectacle may never escape that shadow. For Jake Paul, it is another step in a career defined by chaos. For Gervonta Davis, it is a chance to cash in without risking his record. And for fans, it is yet another reminder that in today's boxing, the line between sport and show has never been thinner. So what do you think? Could Tank Davis truly overcome the size of Jake Paul? Or would the laws of physics protect the YouTuber from one of the most feared punchers in the world? Is this fight an insult to boxing or simply the next chapter in its evolution? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories shaking the sport.